Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright. It's alright. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright. It's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold and lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright. It's alright. Little darling, the smiles are returning to the faces now. Little darling, it seems like years since you've been here. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, feels like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I'm so glad to see it. I see it's alright.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh yes, it does work. There are just a few people arriving, but I'll ask you to make your way in. Hi Richard. It's nice to see many of you got a drink. It's lovely to see so many familiar faces from across the decades. Mum loves a good party and she'd be thrilled with this turnout. Thank you for coming along this afternoon. Will, John and I really appreciate it. It's really nice to see so many people here. We've sort of all settled down. It's so nice to be here in Albert Park, Port Melbourne, for this occasion, this quite strange, sort of sad occasion, marking the unexpected death of Stewart, my brother, and Janet, our mum. We've got a few people lined up to speak today, and they've prepared some really nice, really lovely words that I hope will trigger some lovely memories. And a bit later this afternoon, after our sort of pre-arranged sort of speakers, there's an opportunity for friends of Mum and friends of Stewart to get up and speak a few words. So as you're listening to some of our reflections and memories, and you're thinking about your memories and experiences, it'd be very nice if you felt that you wanted to share them with us. So it'd be really nice if you wanted to come up and speak about that, or it'd be very nice to meet and speak with you after the formality. After a number of speakers, we'd like to invite you back to the bar, and we've also arranged for some food. So please hang around, and it'd be really nice to catch up. Thank you. I seem to recall Mum saying that she went to 16 schools before the age of 15. She said that quite a few times when we were growing up. I'm not sure about those numbers, but they're about right. This regular upheaval was imposed on the family as Stewart Hardie, my mother's father, progressed up through the ranks of the Bank of Australasia, later becoming the ANZ Bank. They lived in Wellington, Melbourne, New Plymouth, back to Wellington, then Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Sydney, London, and again in Melbourne. The family returned to Australia in 1956. Janet completed some study at the Secretarial School in Melbourne and briefly worked at Thomas Cook. It was while working at Thomas Cook that Mum visited the Alfred Hospital to inquire about nursing. Mum was directed to the matron and signed up on the spot. The career deviated from the business office environment and secretarial one to nursing. It was a bold decision and a bit of a surprise for the family. 3 years training as a nurse and 1 year as staff nurse. Between 1964 and 1966, Mum took time off work from nursing to travel the United Kingdom and Europe. On board the ship, Mum met up with some musicians and agreed to join their band, travelling to France. In southern France, the band mostly performed to an American army personnel from the nearby army base. The band was there for about 3 months only because they couldn't get paid. Of that time, Mum remarked, "You're fearless when you're young." While living in London, Mum really wanted to study art, sing in a band, and do other things. The other things were never fully explained, but I always had the impression Mum wanted to be a professional soul or blues singer, perhaps a famous artist, writer, maybe Bond girl, a femme fatale, or some sort of eccentric socialite. In 1966, Janet returned to Australia. In 1968, flattered with Carolyn Stevenson and Jacqueline McNaughton in Sydney, while furthering a career in nursing, completing a theatre course at Royal North Shore Hospital. It was about this time that Janet met David. The story was that David had the task of delivering a yacht to Sydney, I think from Melbourne, for a friend. With the yacht moored at Rushcutters Bay, David spotted Janet and asked if she might have a fridge and a space to store his meat. Indeed. After some courtship, David and Janet married in Melbourne, the 29th of March 1969. The pictures are fantastic. I arrived in 1971, Stewart arrived in 1974, and Will arrived in 1976. From 1968 through to 1981, 13 years, Mum worked at the Alfred Hospital in various roles. This was a special time for Mum. Mum was particularly proud of her technical work in the early days of the dialysis unit. Mum would go on to work in roles with the broader hospital-wide responsibilities: charge sister, night superintendent, and nursing supervisor for nursing administration at Alfred Hospital. After 10 years, Janet and David's marriage couldn't be sustained, and at the end of 1979, with help and support of family and friends, Mum relocated to Port Melbourne. At 219 Esplanade West, Port Melbourne, Mum provided a wonderful home environment and base for adolescent adventures. As mentioned, by 1980, Mum had achieved a reasonably senior rank at the Alfred Hospital, and with some sadness at giving up the buzz that comes with working at one of Melbourne's 3 major hospitals, Mum joined the team at the very new Southport Community Nursing Home. Southport was a particularly exciting initiative, supported by strong community interest and involvement. During school holidays, I, my brothers, and chums, primary school chums, spent quite a bit of time at Southport, enjoying friendships with quite a few crazy characters, nursing staff, allied workers, and the residents. At 219, Mum provided a great home, a base to enjoy school, participate in scouts and after-school programs, including gymnastics, trampolining, baseball, drama, and piano lessons. We also attended concerts and theatre. Mum was a great supporter and really encouraged us in all those activities. At this time, we also enjoyed butte holidays with Mum at Inverloch and Rye, and Will, Stewart and I also enjoyed regular wonderful holidays and time with Dad and family in Adelaide, at Yankalilla and at family homes in Adelaide. As might be typical for siblings, towards the end of secondary school and beyond, Will, Stewart and I went off in fairly divergent directions. Yet our trajectories very much continued in an orbit grounded to Mum's strong, stable, dependable and central influence. I'm tremendously proud and grateful for Mum's interest in politics, a general interest in class mobility and social equity, Mum's interest and empathy for disadvantaged groups, and regular discussions on whatever is topical in party politics. Janet and David's concern for the environment very much rubbed off on me, and also very much on Stewart. Stu very much enjoyed snorkelling, and on numerous occasions spoke with real concern about the impact of pollution and other human activity on Port Phillip Bay, notably shipping and dredging, impacting habitats and causing significant long-term harm to plants and animal life. Mum and Stuart's interest and priorities in these areas will certainly encourage me to further their concern and efforts and prioritise action in this area. I'll greatly miss their influence and passion. They passed the baton on to me, they passed the baton on to us. I'll miss them both very much. Thank you. I left the bit about the dead cat out, Colin, so you're off the hook. Now, let me think who's up next. I think we've got John. Yes, John. Enormously central Uncle John. I'd like to welcome up to say a few words about Mum and Stu. Thank you.
I may get weary. Women do get weary. Wearing the same shabby dress. But to one who's weary, try a little tenderness.
Can you see that?
Of all the people here today, I have known Janet the longest. I was born in Wellington, New Zealand in 1935. Janet did not turn up until 5 years later in 1940, historically in the early days of World War II. There is no denying that I was a beautiful blonde child. When I was taken out in a pram, it was so gratifying to both my mother Kathleen and me to be stopped and justifiably admired. As expected, I was given forewarning when the certainty of a new brother or sister would be forthcoming. When the day arrived, 16th of June 1940, Mother and Babe were driven home from the hospital in a neighbour's car. We did not own one. Incidentally, the car was powered by a charcoal gas preserver in the absence of rationed petrol. Well, shock for me. Small, red, wrinkled, a girl, and the centre of attention. Oh well. And so Janet became a member of our family, and as she grew, her brilliant red auburn hair earned admiration everywhere. And then there were concerns. Janet was born pigeon-toed, and it seemed that her walking may be impeded. Expert advice was obtained with the result that baby Janet was fitted with metal braces, which were supposed to correct the stance. One brace was fitted to each leg, from foot to thigh, and to each leg, and they were worn day and night. Walking was painful and limited. Playtime with mates was restricted. Fortunately, the value of the treatment, perhaps even torture, came to be queried to the extent that the braces were discarded quite quickly. And the result? Janet's feet straightened normally and naturally, to the relief of the family. Janet started life dealing with painful medical treatment thought to be necessary. Her latter years were painful and long. In both instances, Janet was brave and she suffered deeply. A hero. And so to our dear student, Stewart, known as Stu. Over recent times, Janet became increasingly more dependent on Stu as he took on the duties of carer in every sense of the word. Neither Janet herself nor any of us could have assisted Janet with her daily needs to the extent that Stu did, with skill and tact. It was Stu who noticed Janet appeared to have had a stroke, and he got her to hospital for what turned out to be the last time. Janet was in hospital when Stu died of a heart attack. They were unable to say goodbye to each other. When Stu came to 219 Esplanade West, he set himself up in the hut in the back garden. He declined to move into the house. He seemed to prefer a degree of independence and was set up beautifully to meet his needs. Out of respect, we have not felt any need or wish to interfere yet in Stu's living arrangements. The sad memories are still too raw. Stu was widely known in the area and generally gave his time to assist neighbours, and he undertook modest projects with efficiency and some appropriate reward as the opportunity occurred. He was proud of his vegetable garden, which continues to flourish to this day. Two lovely people have left us too soon. Thank you for joining us today to remember them with love.
just a good word, soft and gentle, makes it easier.
John, what wonderful, heartfelt words. Thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephen McLeod, and I was Janet's bridesmaid in 1969. Think Marge Alsop to Dame Edna Everidge. So, when thinking of what to say today, I suddenly realised what isn't there to say about our darling Janet, known as Bat, a senior member of the Haggery, a group of glorious 80-year-olds who terrorised the city of Port Phillip. Where to start? As many of you know, Bat was a woman of many passions, with a razor-sharp wit and scary honesty. She was highly intelligent, compassionate, and with more than a touch of madness. As well, Janet was highly gifted artistically and musically, and was a superb nurse, holding senior positions at the Alfred Hospital. She always made much of the difficulties of attending 16 schools because the family moved many times. But in reality, I think the maturity that stemmed from her experiences equipped her very well to take on leadership roles and to understand people so well. Janet was a proud Kiwi before she became an Australian in order to qualify to enter an art competition. Janet and I met at Caulfield Hospital as junior nurses and became lifelong friends for over 60 years. We flattered together in Sydney with our friend Jackie, and she subsequently met David. They married and had 3 beautiful little red-headed boys, Sam, Stuart and Will. Growing up, the Venning boys with our sons Ben and Hamish shared many happy times together at Point Lonsdale and at our farm in Lansfield. When Janet and David divorced, Janet became a single mum. John, Janet's older brother, stepped into the breach. I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge what a wonderful brother and uncle you have been to Janet and her boys, John. You have supported the family, both financially and emotionally, over many years, with true Hardie family integrity. I know you and Janet loved each other and had great loyalty, even although you didn't always see eye to eye politically. 4 years ago, following a fall in a bus as she was going to an art class, Janet sustained a severe back injury and her health started to decline. From then on, it seemed there was one illness after another: amyloidosis, a fractured neck of femur, polyneuralgia rheumatica, and other diagnoses that the old Alfred nurses had never heard of. The size of Janet's medical history must break all records. Over this time, between a myriad of medical appointments and admissions, Janet's boys and Bob, her dog, each played an important role in keeping their mother at home. Amidst the sheer physical exhaustion and the anguish of just keeping going, Janet's wit and repartee reigned supreme. She told amazed ambulance medicos that she was a drug addict, aged 80, mind you, and with hospital staff, she was always a favourite. In the last year of her life, Stuart became Janet's primary carer. Beautiful Stewie with his big smile, consideration, energy and determination to get his mother back on her feet again. I have never seen such love and care. He kept the house immaculate, the garden flourished, meals were cooked, medications given, and Janet lovingly showered and looked after in some situations that trained nurses would have found challenging. I believe that Janet's final admission to the Alfred with the terrible COVID restrictions was the final stressor in Stuart's life. Fails Stewie. During times at home and between admissions, Bat and I talked and laughed uproariously about many things. We decided that humble was not an appropriate word to describe her in any future obituary, or sayings such as gone to greater glory, safe in the arms of Jesus, or even, I told you I was sick. We talked about the horror of ending up in a nursing home side by side, both senile and spitting out porridge and disclosing each other's secrets and indiscretions. This has not happened, and we did not dress Janet up in a dress with matching hat, gloves and handbag for her promotion as threatened. Janet faced death with such incredible strength and humour. Always foremost in her mind was her love for her 3 boys and her concern for their welfare. I shall miss her until the end of my days, as will many others. Finally, in the words of St. John Chrysostom, those whom we love and lose are no longer where they were before. They are now wherever we are. Thank you. I would like to invite you now to listen to some music that Janet loved and had requested we play. It is Brahms' Sophitia Ode Opus 94, number 4, sung by Kathleen Ferrier. Following this, we shall listen to Janet's beautiful voice singing Blow the Wind Southerly. Thank you.
Rose
How lovely to see you all, and hard acts to follow all of those, especially that beautiful music and John's words and Stevie's, but I'll do my best. I don't really remember how I first met Janet. I was ahead of her in my training at the Alfred, and I had a close set of my own friends, but I was always aware of the red-headed nurse with the big personality who starred in Alfred Hospital reviews, and I knew that she sang and played guitar and lived in a flat in Paisley Street, South Yarra. I must have done something right, because I do remember attending parties at the flat, and sometime after Janet had finished her training and staffing year, I was invited to join her and Annie Walk on a trip to England on the Northern Star. Shore Savile, rice pudding ships. It was one class, and we shared a berth, a cabin way below deck with a Mrs. Flanagan from Liverpool, returning to England because she was missing the pubs and the clubs. Janet, unlike Annie and me, had travelled around the world heaps with Mummy and Daddy on first-class ships. Daddy was important in banking, so this was quite a come-down for our friend. We knew lots of people on board and we made new friends, and the booze was cheap, and we had a ball for 6 weeks. This was really the beginning of my long friendship. On board, Janet entertained everyone with her guitar and singing, and I will never forget, he was just a lavender cowboy, and I think in contrast, I should sing it to you. It went like this. He was just a lavender cowboy with only 3 hairs on his chest, and he rode on a filly called Daffodilly, the purtiest horse in the West. He was just a lavender cowboy, committed a terrible sin, for he went on a bender and slugged the bartender and stole all the bartender's gin. So the posse, they went out to find him, to bring him back dead or alive, and they knew as they went they were hot on the scent by the smell of Chanel number 5. So, look, this was very popular. This was a great favourite with everyone, and she was so popular that the young man in charge of the main band on board invited to go with him and his group to an American Army base in Argonne in France, where he had been booked to go and entertain the troops. Janet was a bit hesitant, so Annie and I attended the meeting with the guys when we arrived in London, just to make sure that she accepted the offer. We felt sure she would be a great success, would become famous, and be able to support us all with her earnings. Well, she did go, she had a great time, but nothing more came of it. Later in her life, Janet did some serious singing, and we all remember hearing her sing opera at the National Theatre in St Kilda. She had a glorious voice, as you've just heard. Who knows what might have happened in other circumstances. One occasion that sticks in my mind from London days was a luncheon that I attended with Janet. Mr Pocock, our ANZ bank manager, invited both of us to lunch at his club. I was so excited that I went to C&A's and I bought a new dress to wear. On the morning, Janet got into her old pants, duffel coat and desert boots. I was surprised. I suggested perhaps a change of clothes was appropriate. No way. Mr Pocock, I think, raised his eyebrows a bit, but he didn't say anything. On other occasions, Annie and I were entertained with Janet and her parents at Brown's Hotel for dinner, where Annie and I had our eyes on sticks looking at all the delicacies. Our friends, some of whom are here today, were taken on holidays with the Hardies on the Norfolk Broads on boats. So we spent time together living and working in London. It was here that Janet met old friends of mine, like Moya and Alison, who remained friends and are here today. And Lizzie Bennett, who had worked at the Alfred with Janet, was another of our lifelong friends, still going strong. Annie, Janet and I went our different ways, and I returned to Oz to be married. Janet returned in 1966, and she was living in Sydney, where we sometimes caught up with each other. She met David and married in Melbourne, and our friendship continued. Ray and I had 3 girls, and Janet and David had 3 boys. Despite age differences, the kids all knew one another, and Sarah, my youngest, and Sam, Janet's oldest, were close friends. We enjoyed many beautiful holidays away together at the prom. Kids, schools, work, all busy times for years, but I have memories of Janet and me in our back garden in Albert Park on late afternoons, drinking wine and enjoying tinned smoked oysters on dry biscuits. I somehow thought that was very special. Janet and the boys moved to Port Melbourne in 1980, and it was shortly after this that we spent professional time together, working for some years at our local nursing home. Carmel's here today, our dear and glorious leader. Lots of laughs and special involvement in this amazing community project. We could teach them a lot with what's happening today. Janet and I both left Southport later in the 80s to continue our work in aged care. Me as a Commonwealth Nursing Officer working in aged care, and Janet as a member of an aged care assessment team at Mount Royal. Janet did spend some time on the board of management of the nursing home. The years rolled on, the kids grew up, we had parties, weddings, deaths, shared lots of talking, reading, political discussions, arguments about sports. That always remained a Kiwi at heart. She had no interest in Aussie rules. We all got older, we retired, but we stayed close. In 1996, I unexpectedly had a very different overseas trip with Janet when she decided she would like to go to Crete and see people she knew who had asked her to visit. She needed a companion and I agreed to accompany her. And we met up with Willie and our friend Penny Horton, who is here today, and with Penny's daughter Emma. While away, I persuaded Bat to have an adventure and to go to Turkey to visit Gallipoli and Istanbul. She was apprehensive at first, but I persuaded her and we had a great trip. Janet was an amazing human being, smart, funny, creative on many levels. She eventually went on to study art and create much beautiful work. I have a treasured drawing that she did of me in about 15 minutes in the late 90s. And I actually put it up today so you could see it's here. Just lovely. Janet was always there for me and the girls if I needed her, especially at hard times, as when Ray died. She was a no bullshit friend. You always knew where you stood with her. She called a spade a spade. My girls and their friends christened Janet Andy Warhol. Look at some of the old photos and you will understand why. My friend's addictions were strong, and I've shared many bottles with her over the years, yet she had the strength to give up the booze. She gave it up to concentrate on chain smoking. Whew. And she did that with a relish, but in these later years she stopped that too. As a single parent, Janet had to work so hard, maintaining herself and the boys, but she was well supported by her parents and her beautiful brother John. I'd like to acknowledge that too. The two siblings, so unalike, I would wonder how they came out of the same womb. Yet they were close. And like Stevie, I would like to acknowledge that John's been a rock for Janet and for the boys for years. Outrageous, never afraid to speak her mind. She didn't suffer fools gladly, and I would certainly include myself there at times. She always let my girls and others know that I was a year older than her in the 1 week after my birthday each year. Before she celebrated her own birth date, I was 1 week older. These last years have been difficult for all of us. We have watched her decline and many visits to hospital and the efforts made to remain at home with the boys caring for her. Stewart was magnificent as her primary carer. It is impossible to make sense of what happened when Stewie died suddenly, predeceasing his mum by a week. I wonder how our Janet would have interpreted it all. I can't help thinking that she would have had something profound to say and explain why things happen the way they do. Farewell, our darling friend. We will soldier on and always remember you.
Would you know my name if I saw you in heaven? Would it be the same
I'm now welcoming down Anna,
if I saw you?
our gorgeous cousin, our one and only cousin, who we had many wonderful holidays.
I must be strong.
It's been wonderful to learn so much about my Aunt Janet from Sam and John, Stevie and Gail. I hope I can get through this as well as they did. 2 years ago, I got a call from Stu, who had left a message on my answering machine in Darwin. We hadn't been in touch for 30 years. I was filled with joy to hear his voice and was grateful he reached out to me. Stu and I are both cousins, both born in 1973, year of the ox. Stu's dad and my mum are siblings. I had many happy memories of Sam, Stu and Will coming over to visit us in Adelaide when we were young. Because I was an only child, the addition of 3 boys to my house was a welcome event. I would become very silly, giggly, and so happy that my small family of 3 had swelled to 7 people. David and his 3 boys coming to Adelaide for the summer holidays and Christmas every second year was also the highlight of my grandmother's year, a chance where she could see and spend time with her 3 freckly-faced, red-haired, beautiful grandsons. She loved them all dearly and spoke about them long after they had returned to Melbourne. My parents, Ping and Elizabeth, delighted in seeing their 3 nephews grow and develop over the years when they visited. Once the festivities of Christmas were over, we would pack up the cars and head down to Yankalilla, where my parents had a farm. Yankalilla is a small town not far from Adelaide. And this is where the real fun would begin for us kids, but especially for Stu. 90 acres of land, an old hay shed, a shearing shed, a hedge circling the house, provided much entertainment for us. I realised as I got to know Stu again in the past 2 years that Yankalilla was a place where Stu went in his dreams. A place where he felt safe and a place that provided many happy memories. Although Stu was probably around 11 years old the last time when he was in Yankalilla, his memories of the place were vivid. In fact, he drew the floor plan of the old farmhouse and sent it to me. It was very accurate. It became apparent when we were children that Stu had some pretty extraordinary abilities. An example of this were his adventures in the ocean. He was probably about 11 years old when he headed out to sea from Normanville Beach, not far from Yankalilla, with his spear gun in search of fish. Pretty quickly, he caught a squid, and we were amazed by the inky squirts produced by the creature as Stu brought it into shore. Spurred on by this success, Stu swam further out to sea. He only told me recently what happened to him when he was quite far out from shore. He told me he ended up in the middle of a school of tuna circling around him. He watched the tuna in awe in the middle of the deep sea. He had a few goes of spearing a tuna with no luck, so he headed back into shore. Not sure which adult was supervising him on the day, but he reckoned he was around 200 metres offshore. Stu went on to have many more adventures which would stretch his body to its physical limits. He was not afraid of working hard, was incredibly creative and had huge talent. So when I spent time with Stu in July last year, his body was noticeably still strong as an ox, with not a skerrick of middle-aged fat. He told me 30 years of stories in 3 weeks. He'd been thinking a lot about his life and reflecting on his experiences. The fact that he was popular was an understatement, and I guess was partly the reason why we lost touch. He was always busy working hard, had many friends, was in a committed relationship and looked for adventure. Towards the end of Stu's life, he'd reached an acceptance of the way he lived his life, and he was devoted to caring for his mum, his Uncle John, Bob and Ellie, and looking after Sam and Will. He desperately wanted to save his mum, and he knew he couldn't. Stu had that really other beautiful quality of being deeply sensitive. He was aware of what his mum wanted and needed, and he did everything he could so that she could stay in her own house for as long as possible. It was so nice to read his texts about giggling with his mum in her bed and the happiness that they both brought to each other in the last few months. It's hard to say goodbye to Stu for very selfish reasons, which was that I loved playing with him as a child and remembering those times with him as an adult and I loved him, just being there to talk to about everyday grown-up issues. I learned heaps from him in 2 years. He brought much joy to me, my parents, children and husband in the texts he sent and the memories he boxed up and gifted to us. You are loved, Stu, and we will miss you.
I loved my mum very much. I also loved my brother very much. There is very little joy in having to say farewell to either of them, and particularly so close, their passing being so close to one another. The silver lining that I tell myself is that the pain and challenges are no longer there, as both of them were navigating their way through huge hurdles. No more misery, no more pain. Instead, I feel very, very, very happy and peaceful knowing that they're together, and I think of them as looking forward to the adventures that they have ahead of them. Whether they are going to Darwin, whether they're travelling around the world, drinking up a storm, or just doing everything they shouldn't. Mum was a strong, somewhat quirky, loving, caring person whom I will miss dearly. She was always there for me, no matter what. She loved me unconditionally, and never did I feel otherwise. She was an incredible woman, resilient, respectful, a little out there at times, but we were always ensured that she loved us, and she and I particularly made everyone aware around us that we had the humour in the family. My family has shrunk considerably with her departure. No matter how prepared I could have been, I never expected it to be this way. Mum, you're at peace now, peace that you so readily deserve. You fought hard to overcome many of your health issues, which you did, throughout your 82 years. I vividly remember almost losing you when I was a teenager, but you soldiered through to beat the pancreatitis and lived another day, giving up the drink and living life, and later giving up smoking, which some people have already touched on. The giving up smoking was purely for my benefit. I was not in a good way myself, and she would do whatever she could to care for me, and that meant not smoking. She did everything she could to support me through that time, and I appreciate everything that she did. And I should also say Uncle John. I found it incredibly difficult the last few weeks going to see Mum, because it was few and far between with the restrictions that we were all faced with. But the minute I saw her, I couldn't contain the joy in seeing her and seeing the little glimpse of the mother that I used to know when she wasn't in hospital. We would always have a giggle and a laugh about old times, but the unpleasant departure always lured its ugly head again, and it was misery driving home from the hospital. Hard because I knew the road ahead for her was very steep and going to be incredibly tough. I wanted to keep her focused on the task, but I knew it was going to be extremely difficult given the recent news that I had to give her about my brother. I will never forget that day, and I hope nobody ever has to go through that. You have given me many fond memories over the time, and I thank you for this. I wish you were here a little bit longer and things were different, but we will meet up again, I'm sure of it. Stu, I could never have guessed this would be the way things panned out. We both had big hearts, and I always thought my exit was going to be more likely. And boy, did I get that wrong. I'm so sorry it panned out this way, and never did I expect to be saying farewell to my nearest and dearest. You could almost call flatmates, all in 1 week. The void is big, and I constantly think that you'll walk in the back door and surprise me any day. It hasn't happened yet. I never did forgive you though. For what? I never did forgive you for the time when we shared a bedroom, and it was at a moment in time where we were fighting, and because we were fighting, we drew a line in the centre of the room and pushed the bunk bed into the centre of the room. He would have the top bunk, I would have the bottom bunk. Somehow he managed to score the door to the bedroom, and I was a little less lucky and I scored the window. So on this particular occasion, I was having a bath, as I did with all my mates, and I thought I would sneak back into the bedroom via the door, thinking he wasn't around. So I quietly raced in with a towel and went into the bedroom and was presented with Stewart lunging at me with a dart, focused on the dartboard, which he didn't quite hit because he hit me straight in the chest. With the dart still in my chest, I froze, cried, turned around and ran to Mum with it remaining in my chest the entire time. Thank you, Stu Bear. I'll forgive you now. Comforted only by knowing wherever you are, you've gone with Mum and that you'll be together. Stu, you were generous, loving, and you looked after Mum so well. It may have taken you some time to find your groove in life, but you did learn a lot of lessons, as many of us have touched on today. Your love and generosity is also much like Mum, unconditional, strong and passionate. The importance that you placed on family and the care for the family unit was incredible. You've supported Mum, myself and John, and I thank you for doing that. You always did try and reflect on the past and move forward. I really do wish things would have been different with us 3 boys, but they have panned out this way, and I'm glad the last 12 months is behind us. It is such a shame that our small family is diminishing. Time being the ultimate challenge that we just don't have control of. Your time was cut too short. You were always happy to share your significant lessons with me and try and navigate a way that I would not also go down that path. And you were never shy to be upfront and honest about the past. You were honest and upfront, and I appreciate that. Your passion was not only the family unit, Mum and I. You had so many other strengths that I wish I could ravel off that everyone has sort of spoken about today as well. The garden being one, reconnecting with Anna was amazing. I have fed off that for the last couple of years. And I will do what I can to continue your legacy in the garden. I'm not very good, but I've got some gardeners to help. I shall look after your garden. I cannot believe you both left me, somewhat completely alone at 219. As I said earlier, there is a massive void with your absence. Ellie and Bob have felt this void immediately, and they have been quick to realise that things are not going to be the same. Bob particularly misses his bromance with Stu and Stu's big man hugs, like only Stu could give. It's been very hard seeing Bob's behaviour last few weeks because he really does miss them. One little piece of happiness that the three of us shared, Mum, Stu and I, is after each walk at night, the way they would bounce back into the house after a walk, fighting with one another, and I'll think of you each time they do that, because that tradition will continue. They are getting old and they will be joining me soon. As will I, as will we all. I love you both from the bottom of my heart, and I wish things were different, but they are. That's it. Thank you.
Time can break your heart. Have you begging, please? Begging,
Thank you. But now I will ask Stevie if you could read or Steve and Gail, what do you want? Just put a few messages. Thank you.
Very quick, just from two of our dear friends who are overseas and sad not to be here and wanted to have one little word. So Annie, our friend in Rome, she had written to the boys, "As you imagined, it's impossible for me to be present at the commemoration for Stewart and my darling friend Janet. Janet and I lived together from our first day at the Alfred for 5 years. First in the nurses' home where she broke her ankle and I used to run her everywhere in a wheelchair. Then in our flat with Sally and Ruth for 2 years. Then just the two of us moved upstairs for another year. We travelled to England with Gail and others, and we took a house in London. I can't remember any fights or even arguments in all those years, although presumably there must have been, because we were both very strong and opposite characters, and they were indeed. But I must have always managed to sort things out. Thank you, Janet. You and Stewart are now in my prayers."
And now a message from darling Lizzie Bennett, who trained at the Alfred with us, now Elizabeth Parsons. And this is a message that she sent for everyone. "Dear Janet, we met all those moons ago in the lofty Nightingale wards of the old Alfred. Our young bodies restrained in uniform of blue with tight starched collars, cuffs and aprons, plus frilly cap atop your glorious head of fiery red. Our feet encased in shoes of kid, 2 pairs prescribed for daily alternation." I don't know where she got that from. "Like nuns, we all looked alike, but soon we chose our special friends for life. Oh, Janet, how you made us laugh. Your ready wit and an adjunct to the stress and strife of ward life while learning our craft of care. With badge and certificate earned, I sloped off abroad to live a different life, but on each return would seek you out, to find you at full stretch with Sam, Stewart and Will by your side, as well as keeping safe the Alfred nursing staff and patients overnight. So glad your art was there to soothe, as pressures arose both day and night. Wherever you and Stu may be, may your company and wit be shared by all forever. With my love, your old mate, Lizzie B."
There's place I'm sure, and I know there'll be no more tears in heaven.
19 years. But it's affected me so deeply. It amazes me how the heart remembers people. I met Stu 29 years ago when we were teenagers, and it was like a bolt of lightning. I just remember I was just struck by him. We pretty much were together from that point on. But I remember Janet encouraged me to take my sketchbooks and get into RMIT Visual Arts, which I was grateful for because I was too shy to, attempt that kind of thing. And I'm sure she would have loved the same opportunities when she was the same age. She was very encouraging, and she was one of the coolest mums I knew, referring to Stu's room out the back as the den of iniquity. She was always kind and a little bit wicked. She loved her boys, and she was always welcoming with me. And as for Stu, I just said this, meeting him was like a bolt of lightning. I loved him for 10 years solid. And meeting him got me believing in reincarnation, like I'd known him before. And when I fell in love with him, I lost my fear of the dark. He felt like my home. And we just got to a point where I had to disconnect because he was already smoking a lot of weed, and I thought it was simple, you just stop, but I know more about addictions now and coping strategies, and I feel like I could have been a different person. So I think my tears are a regret for not being different for him in that time. When I think of him, I see him as smiling, so I just feel like the pain is all mine. So a friend encouraged me to. Anyway, he said to think about the good things, not about my own inconsistencies. He said to me, thank you. He said to me over 20 years ago, when I die, I want a party, not a funeral. And I thought it was impossible because I couldn't imagine what life would be like without him. And here we are, 20 years apart, and I don't understand why I'm feeling so deeply, except to know that deeply in my bones, the heart remembers, my body remembers. I'm right back there 20 years ago with his bright smile. So rather than regret and focus on my inadequacies, I've been encouraged to explore the ways in which he's touched my soul and the gifts that he represents in my life. And I think the biggest one is nurture. He was good with nudge. No one's mentioned nudge. He wasn't a favourite with everyone, his dog. He cuddled him and cooked him some fabulous meals. They were best mates. His little bestie. Stu would wake me in the morning with a cup of tea and a freshly toasted muffin, toasted to perfection with tomato and mushrooms and salt and herbs and white pepper and cheese, and he would time the processes to get each ingredient caught up to the next and deliver it a taste sensation in flavour and texture. And he told me how as a kid, when his friends asked if he could stay the night, his first question would be, "What's for dinner?" That would be the determining factor of whether he'd pack his PJs and head over or not. And so I've worked out that his dominant sense must have been taste, smell. So of the 5 senses, we generally favour a few, and they're grouped into 4 categories. So you've got sight, sound, touch, and taste and smell are together. And taste and smell people are peacekeepers. He was a lover, not a fighter. And rather be upset by a tactile person leaving their shoes in the middle of the floor, that would be me, or annoyed by a visual person who's well organised and vocal about how others can better organise their own lives. A taste-smell person can maintain harmony in a household. They don't make demands or harbour expectations. They keep themselves smelling nice and ensure the food smells and tastes good. And to this day, his toasted muffins cannot be beat. He was a great cook, a gardener, a masseuse, a singer, a guitar player. He listened a lot to Ben Harper and Jack Johnson. He was a great hacky sack player, a rollerblader. So I'm still stuck in the 90s. I haven't evolved from 20 years ago with him. We camped up the west coast of Australia. He showed me Kakadu. He loved nature. I met some of his mates in far north Queensland. We've been skydiving together. He was a great sailor. He took me sailing through the Whitsundays. We stayed in Airlie Beach with David and Marley, and on more than one occasion, bringing boats to and from various islands for holiday makers. Stu and I went naked sailing in the Queensland sun, and people would ask us, "What do you guys do? How can you afford to sail the Whitsundays?" We were in our mid-20s, and Stu said he was a stuntman and I was a model. I think they thought we were drug dealers. He knew how to sail against the wind and how to offer direction so that even least experienced deckhand could find their way around the ropes and prove themselves useful. I had a beautiful photo of him, eyes closed as if sleeping in peace, like outstretched along the boom in a sail. I wish I could share it. I can't find it, and that's how I remember him. He was an awesome bear hugger. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, can attest to that. He was kind, loving, generous, and I'll forever be grateful for his colourful impact in my life. I would say rest in peace, but party on, dude, see you in the next life seems more fitting. That's my...
Would you know my name if I saw you in heaven? Would you be the same if I saw you in heaven? I must be strong.
I'm Norman Huon, Gail's younger brother, on claim to fame. I wouldn't presume to add to any of the extremely intelligent, heartfelt tributes to Janet. What's to add except to say that she was an exceptional woman in every respect, and what I've loved in the last couple of years has been the intelligent, biting wit in our email exchanges, when she hasn't been so well. And I also want to formally apologise on behalf of Janet and me to Stevie and Colin for somebody spiked our drinks at Stevie's 60th birthday party, and we made some most inappropriate interjections for which we were appropriately censored, and it almost led Janet and I to join the Port Melbourne branch of the Racobites. But for all that, I had to talk at a funeral recently for somebody who was in no way as near and dear to me as Janet. And some of the things I said were perhaps apt, and I did say that, with apologies to all of the beautiful young friends of the three boys, these occasions are celebrations for geriatrics. And, when somebody our age dies, it's a real catalyst, isn't it? I mean, for a start, it's a reminder of our own mortality and the fact that we don't have much time to waste. And it seems to me that a lot of us here, you get up on your tiptoes and you look over the fence and you can see the finishing tape. It's not too far away. And we've got a couple of options. You can approach it fearfully and tentatively, living in the past, or you can approach it full of vigour. You can really hit that tape full of running. In Kipling's terms, fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distant run. And notwithstanding the last few years, when Janet had slowed down somewhat, I think she truly typified that she certainly led a full and very active, rewarding, productive life, and that's some tribute. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Probably need for a drink. Unless anybody else has an urge to grab the microphone, I might suggest that we take a breather, grab a drink. I think we might be charging now, and some food. It'd be really lovely to catch up with you, and have a look at the slides, Will and I, the photos that Will and I have gathered. There are some really beautiful images. It'll take me a moment to just switch the presentation, but many of you will feature in the slides at various functions, holidays, Southport. It's really gorgeous to see. The family is really thrilled that so many of Stewart's and Mum's friends and family have joined us today. So on behalf of the family, thank you very much for coming to here this afternoon to remember Janet Hardie and John Stewart Venning. Thanks very much.
Yeah, Bob. Another bit for you, and Ellie she hasn't even noticed.
Well,
Yes?
she deserves them.
She deserves them. No, it's funny though. We can't do the stuff.
Who did your hair today?
What?
Who did your hair today?
I did. Why?
What's,
Not nice.
oh no, it's Beehive.
Yeah, nice good Bob. That's good. Last bit.
Give me a smile, Mum. Ready to go?
Oh, no.
Mozzies or flies?
Flies.
Please, Bob and Ellie. Your Mum, hold that video.
Yeah.
Video the dog's just beautiful.
When do I do it?
When did it? I don't know. Can you see them? Go out. No, it's all
Who's that?
Oh. Mum was worried you were dressed as Santa Claus too. I tell Mum every day how I love it, how Ellie gets distracted by Bob looking at me for food or something or anything, and she'd be like this, Will, looking at me going, yeah, yeah, and she'd walk into a post or into a doorway or into...
I'm here.
Stop. Okay, good.
There's a bathroom.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Ooh, someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't well, I see trees of green and red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue and I see clouds of white and the brightness of day. I like the dark and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, singing, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. And the dreams that you dare to, why, oh why can't
Looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so uninspired. And when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired. Before the day I met you, life was so unkind. You're the key to my peace of mind. 'Cause you make me feel, you make me feel, you make me feel like a natural woman. When my soul was in the lost and found, you came along to claim it.
high-tone places. Liz Taylor is not a style, and even Lana Turner smile. Something he can't see. My baby don't care who knows it. My baby just cares for me. Shows, and he don't even care for clothes. He cares for me. My baby don't care for cars and races. Baby don't care for. He don't care for high-tone places. Liz Taylor is not his style, and even Liberace smile. Something he can't see is something he can't see. I wonder what's wrong with baby. My baby just cares for. My baby just cares for. My baby just cares for me.
Des yeux qui font baiser les miens, en rire qui se perdent sous sa bouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas. Je vois la vie en quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur par des bonheurs dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Son nom, moi, mon Would anybody like some French tips tonight? So je sonne en moi la vie.
There is a house built out of stone, wooden floors, walls and window sills, tables and chairs warmed by all of the dust. This is a place where I don't feel this is a place where I feel at home. Built a home for you, for me, until you disappeared from me, from you. It's time to live and time to die. Out in the garden where we planted the seeds, there is a tree as old as me. Branches were sold by the color of green. The ground had a rose then past its knees. By the cracks of his skin I climbed to the dawn. I climbed the tree to see the world. When the guys came around to blow me down, held on as tightly as you held on to me, held on as tightly as you held on to me.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. Oh yeah, yeah, at last the skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover. The night I looked at you, I found a dream that I could speak to, a dream that I can call my own. I found a thrill
Letters in the sky,
to press my
burning in your eyes. You look at me, babe, I wanna catch on fire. It's buried in my soul, like California gold. You found the light in me that I couldn't find. So when I'm all choked up but I can't find the words, every time we say goodbye, baby, it hurts. When the sun goes down and the band won't play, I'll always remember us this way. Lovers in the night, poets trying to write. We don't know how to rhyme, but damn, we try. But all I really know, when the whole world fades, I'll always remember us this way.